one lecture, and then we're going to go and have a really delicious lunch. And this afternoon we'll get some other bits and bobs. Right. So, the second part of the treatment is everything else. I want you to not be overwhelmed by what I'm about to say. I want you to come away thinking, wow, that means I could do literally anything to help my patients. Hopefully it's going to give you more treatment ideas for your box. Because there are lots of patients that are difficult. They're the ones that come into clinic that you think, oh, what am I going to do? And you can't touch them, okay? And that is normal and that is real, and you can't touch them for a while. This is what you do to begin with. So we're going to look at graded sensory motor learning and neurocentric approaches. So another study showing that if we limit treatment to the bladder, it's ineffective for bladder pain syndrome. So Hoffman 2015, again we need to do other things. And that's because we don't just have a problem in our bladder, we have a problem in the whole of the pelvic area, we have a dysregulated nervous system, immune system, we have changes in our motor and our sensory and our limbic system, as well as our autonomic issues. So we're going to look at how we might potentially treat this within our scope of practice as a physio. Again, remembering that it's within a predictive processing model, so we're always basing it on the predictions the patient's making. We know that connectedness of the brains in people that have urological chronic pelvic pain, the men, is important. Another study by the MAP Research Network. So the red people have fewer connections and the blue have more connections. If you have more connections in your brain, it is more connected, then you are more likely to improve. The people that had large amounts of connections, it was predictive of them improving from their condition. And what that really means is that we need cognitive flexibility. If you have fewer connections, you do something, this happens. You do something, this happens. You do something, this happens. If you have lots of different connections, you do it in different ways to achieve the same thing. It's having redundancy. Redundancy is a term that we have in the body. So our brain has vascular redundancy, which means we have 4 blood supplies. So if any one of them is cut off, we have 3 more ways that we can get blood to our brain. We need that within our brain. We need to have different ways. And patients with bladder pain syndrome become very, very cognitively unflexible. Yeah, they do one thing, affect one thing. And then the social limitations on their lives also. They don't do things because it hurts. We have some treatments for this already, but we don't know if they're effective in pelvic pain. And that's what I'm doing with my PhD, which is looking at this, whether women with consistent pelvic pain have sensory motor distortions. Because if they do, then we can treat it, because we do have approaches to that, or we can at least start trialling ways of treating it. The way that we work this out is we use the free pack, as I told you. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to give lots of women with pelvic pain. We've already validated it in them, but I'm going to look at giving women this and seeing what we get back. Within bladder pain syndrome, we've got 3 main goals. We want to normalise the function of our organs, so bladder and bowel, uterus, we all want working normally. We want to normalise the pelvic floor function, so get rid of all of the myofascial issues, and we want to restore the rest of their life, which is the big one. So their functionability, their daily activities. We've got loads of evidence treatments for that. We can change their bladder function by doing drill or retraining, but really drill. We can look at dietary input, defecation dynamics, voiding dynamics. We can do pelvic floor muscle therapy directly with massage. So I'll say that again. The good thing is we have lots of treatments. And graded exposure is something we're also going to talk about now. The one thing that we don't have any evidence for is graded sensory motor learning, which is what Katie, Kelly and I are calling what was known as graded motor imagery. Have any of you done any work in CRPS, complex regional pain syndrome? Do you remember back to the days of physio school? CRPS patients. So there is, in CRPS hand, there is an initial insult, usually a fracture or an operation. the pain goes on too long.
There
you go.
It used to be Sudek, but now
Sudek?
the name changed. You don't say anymore Sudek.
No. But they get it's very similar to BPS, an initial insult, crazy response of the autonomic nervous system, hair growth, very painful, can't do anything, can't touch it. The treatment for chronic regional pain syndrome, SUDEC, is is very neurocentric to begin with. So the first things that they do, if we borrow it, CRPS hand and foot, and then in low back pain, the treatments involve, well, let's go through this, sorry, wrong thing, I'll come on to it. We know in these conditions that we have changes to the perception of size, shape, reduced tactile acuity, so they don't know where you're touching, they can't tell. Heat and pain thresholds are also altered. We also know there are motor and sensory maladaptations. In pelvic pain, we have some evidence that it's similar. So we know that there is warmth and heat elicited perineal pain difference in their thresholds. We know that there is allodynia, so pain where it shouldn't exist, and diminished vulvar thresholds due to psychological function and distress. So similar things. But at the same time, we have these motor and sensory system changes. So it's suggesting that we might be able to do the same treatments. In hands, a graded motor imagery approach from the Noy group in Australia, Laura Mimosi et al., would be to start with looking at laterality of the hand. So what they do is they give someone a computer thing or a flashcards. You can do it on your phone now as well. There are apps that you can have, Recognise app, which is really useful. And you get to look at lots of pictures of hands doing things, and what you've got to say is that the left or the right hand? That's all you have to do. But the process of doing that is believed to excite the premotor cortex of the hand that is relevant, that you have injured. The idea being that we switch on the bit of the brain that is responding, is related to the bit of you that hurts, but without hurting it. So it's very gently just going, hi, hi. Because we know that when you look at a picture of a hand or a foot or a body, what your brain does is it puts you in that position mentally, and that's what the premotor cortex lights up, to work out which hand it is, and then you go, it's the right hand, left hand, yeah? So giving this to patients fires parts of their brain that we know aren't working as well. The next thing that they would do is they'd do mirror therapy. So if this hand hurts, they would put the hand that hurts behind the mirror, and then look in the mirror with this hand and get this hand to do that. What they see happening is this. What is actually happening is this.
Mm-hmm.
And what that starts to do again is get parts of the brain firing, but without doing something that would hurt. So they do lots of mirror therapy. They move on from mirror therapy into imagining movements, which sounds crazy, but I've done this with patients and it works brilliantly. So you get someone to think about picking up a cup or doing something, and you do it until it doesn't hurt to do. And then the next thing you might do is watch other people pick up cups, or there's a phrase in English, well, in the north of England where I'm from, when you can do something without it raising your hackles, so making you have an autonomic response, like this. If you can think about picking something up without it, with that hand, without it hurting you, or thinking that it would hurt you, then we're getting somewhere. And you progressively move on. It is it's the only effective treatment for CRPS that we have. There is no other validated treatment. It doesn't have a lot of evidence, but it is pretty good. So Katie, Kelly and I, and actually Sandy Hilton and Carolyn have been translating this. Sandy Hilton and Carolyn started in 2008, and Katie and I have kind of taken the mantle on. We've been translating this into the pelvis for a while. So using concepts around pelvic laterality and understanding where the pelvis is. For people that you can't touch them, they're in so much pain. Understanding principles about what's inside you by doing education, and then looking at implied or explicit imagery. And by explicit imagery, I don't mean sexual explicit. Explicit meaning clearly showing what is actually happening, not just implying it. This would be an implied image of a gynecological exam, of things that are to do with the pelvis. So, it was called graded motor imagery, but Katie and I for 2 years have been trying to come up with words, because you know I'm a pedant for words, I keep saying it, something that would unify the concepts that we have for what we're doing. And we don't believe that graded motor imagery is effective in the pelvis, because the pelvis has so many more domains of sexuality, societal norms, taboo, cultural norms, so many other things. So what we are doing is we are going through a learning process, because that encompasses all of that. And it's not just motor. Katie wants the motor in there because of the pelvic floor. I really want the sensory in there because I think that's what we're doing. So we're calling it graded sensory motor learning. GSML at the moment. And, you know, we will publish papers on it at some point, but that's what we're calling it. So, here is some people doing that. Let me turn this on because it's louder. Good. Right. So you're going to see a series of videos I've done of patients with their consent. They know they're being filmed for education for you guys, but also for a while I did just film all the patients doing this. What I'm looking at is the side of their neck. That gives us a lot of information on autonomics, flushing, heart rate, breathing, swallowing, that kind of distress signs. What we started off with, so the back history to this is that lady with a 46-year history of pain that told me about her traumatic delivery. When I brought out my plastic pelvis to be like, this is the pelvis, this is the pelvic floor, you're going to be fine. She took one look at it and went green, and I saw it happen and her body language and everything, and I slid it back behind my computer and I said, you didn't really want to look at that, did you? And her husband laughed and he went, oh, she's a prude. Do you know the word prude? Mm. Yeah, she's a prude. And she went, oh, I don't like looking at it. And I was like, is it that you don't like looking at things like that, or is it hard to look at something like that? And she said, no, I don't know, maybe a bit of both. And we talked about it. It turns out she couldn't change her granddaughter's nappy because she couldn't look at a vulva. She hadn't been able to look at anyone's vulva, including her own. She could do her grandson's, but not her granddaughter's. And it was all down to the fact that actually looking at that pelvis made her feel sick and made her pain worse. In my mind, I went, what the hell am I going to do with you? Thus, this began. So I kind of said to her, the only thing that I can think, in my mind I was thinking the only thing that we have that's relevant to that is CRPS. But you can't even touch them, you can't even think about touching them. So let's do that with you and see if this works. And we started with, she was a fan of Strictly Come Dancing. So we started with borrowed images of Strictly Come Dancing. These are complex, but getting her to do laterality. Then we moved on to some more educational stuff. So here's some people doing, I then started using it with people who had pain as a way of screening when we didn't have the Treactment because we hadn't done the research yet, as a way of screening if I needed to do this stuff or not. How are they responding to it? Is it making them feel awful? If it is, do we need to talk about it culturally? Do we need to talk about it because you're in lots of pain? What do we need to do? Let's go back to this one. Right, let's see if that works.
Straight on. Left.
So they're telling me the side of the pelvis that she can see facing her.
Side right. Side right. Front right. Side right.
Front. The left side.
Okay, we'll watch that again. The first two, no issues. Yeah, it's the right, it's the left, it's the left, it's the right. The first girl gets them all wrong. The bloke's not great at it. But what on the Noy group in their research, what they looked at with laterality is the time it takes someone to think about it. You shouldn't think about it hard, you should just do it. And they standardise times so you can tell if it's taking someone too long. And also I'm looking at how much percentage they get correct. So are they always saying the side that's in pain? even if it isn't the one that's facing them? Or are they always saying the side that's not in pain, even if it's not there? Now, Sandy Hilton talks about that as being having attention toward or attention away. And I think it's a really nice way of thinking about it. If someone's attention is fixated on their pain, we want to move their attention away from it more. If someone is neglecting their pain, if their attention is away from their pain, we need to get them to come and think about it. So this is a little way that I did of screening that. So watch them again, watch the third girl. Oh, come on. Doesn't want to play.
Straight up. Left. Right.
Side right. Side right. Front right. Side right.
Front.
Swallow, swallow.
On left side.
So they start easy and they get complicated, and then we go on to geography. So
Civics.
animated pictures, they've got a list on the left-hand side of things I want them to find. They can choose to find them or not. All of those areas are labelled.
Is the bladder thing.
So now I'm looking at what is she choosing to find, what is she not choosing to find.
Back passage. Clitoris. General opening. Penis. General opening.
Hard. They're all labelled.
Vagina open.
So she was a patient with endometriosis who had more kind of anterior suprapubic pain. She'd had a laparoscopy recently and some bladder pain, and she really wanted a baby. So she finds the cervix on every image, if it's an option, and she finds the anus. So she's kind of avoiding suprapubic region and urethra because they're really painful, but also fixated on cervix. I'm not a psychologist. I'm just noting that this is interesting. It may mean nothing. It may mean something. But with her, that was quite a straightforward process. She's, I think she's a teacher, so it was quite easy. This girl wasn't so easy. So she was a lady who had a grade 3 tear, 3A, wasn't even meant to be seen by physio. Perineal tear post baby 1. Baby 1 was 4 years old. She'd had gentle stitching, no issues apparently, but then had been given no aftercare, no support. And to her, even though she had what we would deem as a kind of routine delivery, it had been very traumatic. It was an experience she hadn't prepared for and had never gone through anything like that in life. So she was very traumatised by the delivery. She was referred to me with dyspareunia and wanting to have fertility issues. They weren't having sex. That was the main fertility issue, because she had a lot of perineal pain, some vulvodynia, and wanted baby number 2. Baby number 1 was 4 years old, so this has been 4 years in the practice. So have a little kind of think about what she's looking at and how she's doing.
Sure. Good. Okay, move on. Okay, move on.
Doesn't want to look at any of the images.
How do you feel keep looking at the screen after doing that one?
I'm a bit flustered.
Okay, so feeling flustered?
Yeah.
Out of breath?
Yeah.
Are you feeling nauseous at all?
No, just a bit hot and bothered.
Okay, well done.
And I stopped the film there, and then she had a panic attack. And this is where I had to scoot her out of that room and put her in the lovely pink sofas. and a cup of tea and a nice conversation. And the next time I treated her, I didn't treat her in that room. I took her, we have a couple of rooms for the consultants, they weren't in, so I took her in a different one so that she wouldn't have any kind of associations with it. But you could tell from that there's a problem there. She's not wanting to look at any of them, and you kind of have to feel it out in these situations, like we did anything. Now that we have an objective measure, I would have given her the free pack. That would have been much quicker and probably a bit more appropriate for her, because it was making her go through something. She didn't want to look at any of the labels. She couldn't find them. She chose not to. And then you could just see it increasing. I'm under threat. Swallowing, coughing, breathing. I could hear her breathing getting faster. Like this. So all of these autonomic signatures that you can see some flushing on the original video, it's not so great on this one. Treatment for her was this. So we went back to the Strictly Come Dancing pictures of people dancing that were wide and then got a bit more narrow. I got to look at other people's pelvises, and then we did lots of education around what's inside her, what it looks like, what it could look like. And then we did, when we'd done about 6 weeks of this, we also had to get her husband in, because she really wanted me to tell him, and for him to know that she wasn't making it up, that she couldn't have sex. And he was actually really supportive, and he'd never put any pressure on her, but she felt the pressure. Because she wanted to have sex, but she couldn't, and she wanted me to tell him it's real. So we had a long conversation about pain and stuff. And when we'd done that for 6 weeks, then I assessed her, and in a pain-free way, I didn't use acupuncture with her the first time. I wanted her to do it cold, so that she would know. And I just did a therapeutic assessment, so that means it's not about going, pelvic floor, perfect score, modified Oxford, blah, 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 it's that. It's just, can you tolerate me touching you? What does it feel like to you? Did it completely pain-free, and she was like, oh my goodness, oh my god, I can't believe there's no pain there. I haven't had pain there for 4 years. And I was like, it's because the tissues are healed and they're fine, it's just been overprotected. She went away doing self-massage and self-release, and then doing the presentation until she was bored of it. The minute that she'd look at 1 or 2 things on each page, the minute that she started to feel like this, stop, close it, walk away, do something else. It's grading your exposure in that bit of your brain to being able to think about and look at these kind of things.
After looking at all those pictures.
This guy?
Yeah, I feel okay.
Absolutely fine.
Looking at it, it just felt really congested, like it just felt a bit overwhelming.
Okay. Can you think physically how you're feeling right now?
Really emotional.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know why. Just probably because I'm focusing on it.
How are you feeling after looking?
So it's very easy to see differences. The last girl is a physio with bladder pain syndrome. She had 6 weeks of installations and then came to see me because she'd finally heard, she was an MSK physio, she heard that we existed in pelvic health. And I did this with her, and it triggered a lot of stuff. So we sent her off to a counsellor, because some things I can cope with, some things I can't. And she did really well and came back pregnant, which was great, with pelvic girdle pain, because she's got hypersensitive pelvis. But that's fine, we can manage that. So one of the things that Katie has done is she did a phase 1 trial in vulvodynia that was really interesting. It said what we thought it was going to say, but she showed women with vulvodynia and controls pictures of things to do with vulvas. So speculum insertion, implied or explicit graphic sexual acts, so penis penetrating, fingers penetrating, those kind of things, but also assessments, sitting, standing, walking. Women that had vulvodynia had a heightened response of anxiety, depression, and perceived pain. Women that were controls that hadn't had vulvodynia, no issue. So we know this is a problem in vulvodynia. I'm doing some work to see what else it is. Katie got really annoyed that while she was doing her research, it was published last year actually, that she had to use images from Pornhub. Because there aren't any good images of normal vulvas. So she made images. She paid women in Canada, not her patients, but locally to her, that wanted to share. And she's got the vulva image bank. So if you're looking for kind of really good quality images for teaching or for just using in clinic and doing this kind of work with, there's 300 images. Some of them are like vulva laterality type ones, and then there's digital palpation. All of the images you've seen on this course of like vaginas or vulvas, sorry, with the wand or the finger or doing things. They're all from Katie's Vulva Image Bank. But she's worth having a follow anyway if you're interested in this kind of research. I have on the Facebook group that you all join and you're welcome to have, and those of you who aren't on it, if you want these, I can send them to you. I went into my old team and said, can you take your clothes off and can I take pictures of you? And they all went, yeah. Because physios do. Yes, I just want to do some vulva, I want to do some vanilla images. Vanilla is non-complex. So I had pictures of old and young and men and women of my physio team just wearing black pants and pelvises in different directions. If you want to use them, there's again about 100 pictures. There's also a presentation of complex images, so non-vanilla, of different groups. I tried to make sure there's kind of gay as well as heterosexual couples, old and young, doing lots of different things, so that you can use them as a way of screening, but you can also use them as conversations. So can you pick a picture on this page that you feel would be difficult? Okay, which one would it be? And why would it be? What do you think it might feel like? Is there a picture on this page that you think would be comfortable and that you might be able to do? I also use the Great Wall of Vulva. Have you seen that recently they've changed the name from Great Wall of Vagina to the Great Wall of Vulva? They've got their words right, so I like them. And Sandy Hilton made these a long time ago. They're little like cards that are laminated. They're like the size of a card, plastic, a bank card. But they have lots of different images from things like speculums, and there are specific ones, but then there are non-specific, bikes or pizza. And it's a really good way of working when you have complex patients in front of you that have seen 17 medical providers and you think, what am I going to do? I give them the deck and I say, sort them out into ones that are easy and ones that are hard. And then from the ones that are hard, you go, which one would you like to work on? They put the pizza down. What does the pizza mean? I can't stand to make pizza. I can't sit at a restaurant and have pizza with my family. It means something different to everyone. It's a great way of starting a goal and going on from there. And the pizza one is one that one of my patients used. Her husband died, she looked after him all the way through his cancer, and she had a postmenopausal prolapse, and she went in for surgery about 6 months after he died. That was the issue. She shouldn't have had it. She was hypersensitised because of her grief. The surgery didn't work. It was perfectly fine, but her sensation of the prolapse didn't change. She became fixated on it, and at the same time she developed coccydynia. She couldn't sit down. I saw her so much pre and post surgery. She'd come to me with her 5 cushions in case of whichever chair she was made to sit on, and couldn't do anything like that. And she wanted to be able to sit in a restaurant with her friends, with her girlfriends, and drink a glass of wine and do it, but she couldn't sit, and she had to take 5 cushions with her because she didn't know what the chairs were going to be, and it was embarrassing. So I got her out of the physio room because I'd had enough by that point, and took her down to the gym, and I was like, right, let's go do something else. And we had a box jump, boxes, and I went, oh, can you just have a perch on there for a minute? I'm just going to get something. Went to the cupboard. We've got a big cupboard. You're going to see it in a minute. 2 doors. And I went inside the cupboard and I just waited. And I kicked a few things to make it sound like I was moving things around. And I went, you know what? I don't think you're going to be the right size. Let me just get the size down. Went back in. Went back out and I went, you've been sitting for 2 minutes. And she's like, I can't even sit for 30 seconds. And we tried to do that in clinic. But she perched on a hard box jump. She went, ooh. I went, yeah, when you didn't realise it, in the right context, social situation with commands, you were able to sit. So it isn't that your tissues can't do it, it's that they're hypersensitive and we need to train the ability for them to be pressurised again. The nerves aren't broken, they're just not, we've got to load them regularly. We all walk around on nerve endings all day long. I stood on my nerve endings for 8 hours yesterday. I'm doing the same today. It's not detrimental, we just need to train it. Graded exposure. This is one of where I used to work. My secretary was very excited to be involved in this. Graded exposure to pressure and exercise and neural pressures can look very simple, like starting them on a ball, moving around, just sitting on something soft and bouncing. Grading it to slightly harder chairs, alternating postures on chairs, getting to this chair is actually harder than the last one. really changing posture. She was enjoying this. This is a patient sofa she was never allowed to sit on. And then going to the hardest chair that we could find. It could also involve some sensory integration. So when we're thinking about that cognitive flexibility, you can set it up with social situations. Sit there for a minute, I'll be back. Ooh, I'm going to say something nice like, you're smaller than you think you are, than I think you are. I'm going to get you a smaller size of the shorts for the machine you're going to see in a minute. But you could also add some other senses. So smell is a really, really evocative one. Does anyone use scent in their clinic? Make it smell nice? Yeah. Yeah? Because it feels like, well, I try and make mine smell a little bit like a nice spa.
Yeah.
One spray in the background, so just subtly it's another hint of like, oh, this is luxury, it's lovely when they come in. But we had one patient who would meditate. She was really into meditation, and she would meditate and then feel her pain would ease significantly, and if she did lots of this, she'd be able to wee on the toilet without pain, and that was incredible. But she couldn't transfer that to her workplace or to anywhere else. So what we did is we added a little bit of scent. So while she was meditating, and we thought about what we would transfer to the toilet. Do you know VI poo or poo-pourri? The sprays that you use in the toilet to cover the smell of feces. And she used that while she was meditating and got really calm. She used it at home when she'd have her wees that were comfortable. She took it with her, and then at the hospital when she came to see me, she put it in there and had a wee and went, oh, it works! I don't hurt! Because that smell then was associated with a happier state of being, an updated prediction. Sound can also be very effective. So this is, I'm hoping this is connected to my, go on. Painful, yeah? So this is an app called binaural beats, which you can set where you put the sound waves. 2 different sound waves, just half a tone apart, half a frequency apart, go through each ear. So that's what it sounds like through that, but on your earphones it just sounds like boo. But because your brain is constantly trying to work out what the tone is, it's very effective at giving your brain something else to think about. It's a bit like a TENS machine. I discovered it, it's part of the research, they're using it in pain for lots of different things. I discovered it and started using it on trains to get rid of headaches. It's amazing. If you put binaural beats on, if I've got a frontal headache, it just goes. And you're like, oh, this is much better, and I can think and work. But patients will go to the toilet with this on, and you can sleep all the way up, meditation, alpha, relaxation, activity. I like it about 38, 37, about here. That's good for me to work. When I'm doing my research or writing, I'll do that. Can you get it higher? Yeah. It's a free app. Patients can put it on and use it for half an hour, like a TENS machine, walk around the house, do the shopping, whatever they need to, and just see if it takes off their pain for a little bit, building cognitive flexibility. Sandy has just brought out a new book, literally just published. I've not updated my slides, I think it was published last week. She's written, I've seen the draft of it, and it's lovely. It's written for patients, so if you've got a really tough patient that you want to do some graded exposure to pressure with, it's called the SIT kit, the Sensory Integration Tool Kit. So you get a bag of balls that are all different shapes and sizes, hard, soft, knobbly, not, and then a book, and it goes through predictive processing, it goes through pelvic pain in a really good, modern way, because Sandy's kept up with the science, and then it guides people through. Have a go at rolling this underneath, near where your sitting bone is. Do it in a way that feels good to you. If the small ball is too small, maybe try the knobbly one. And it's great for getting self-efficacy and working. So that is now available from OPTP products. But she's all over Instagram and stuff. Internal awareness, we talked about this a little bit already, may be absolutely key to our ability to get past pain and to recover from pain. So the more we understand our insides, which is why I do the education with patients so much. I am working on that, give me a couple of years. There's a really good paper that says that shows that interoception and resilience are dramatically linked. So our ability to cope with stressors is very much linked to our awareness of our own insides. Resetting the PAG. This is the fun bit. So that's the PAG. I have no idea what that diagram shows, but I found one that showed the PAG, so I put it in. We know that the PAG is, resetting our paraactive brain is responsive to CBT, so sending them away to our counselling friends. It's also responsive to changing their vagal nerve tone. We have these vagal nerve stimulators that look horrendous. They're like tasers for your neck, that I thought were probably going to become a big gadget 4 or 5 years ago, but they haven't, thankfully. They can do implantable ones. But we can also do that by vagal nerve stim, mindfulness, we did some of it with the breathing and those other kind of techniques, humming, deep breathing, interval training, I forgot to put on it, interval training and deep breathing, humming. So I put music on in the morning as my go music when I'm teaching, you've all noticed, but I walk around the room humming, and part of that is my own calming down my system to make sure I can think and work before I teach. And I do it in the car lots. I'm sure, I don't know if anyone else likes to sing really loudly in the car, but it makes you feel great because it calms your vagal, it gets your vagal nerve and calms you. Chilinsky, lovely guy, he presented this in Washington coming up 5 years ago now, 6 years ago nearly. This is what he does with his pain patients. He starts them with a 3-minute warm-up in the pool. They work hard for 20 seconds, they rest for 70 seconds, and he does that 5 to 9 times through. They're still, every time I teach this, everyone asks me, is this published yet? And I go back and I ask him once or twice a year, and it still isn't, they're still gathering data. But he's finding good results from it. And I think we know that interval training is effective. This is a nice little way of just packaging it. So the idea is this is 90 seconds, a work-rest cycle, and over time you build it up to 150 seconds, but the rest is always at least twice the work. Yeah, you're always resting for a lot longer than work. It doesn't have to be a triathlon, and although that would be my preferred sport, most patients are doing things like walking, and then walking faster, walking up a hill, walking flat, walking around the park, finding a hill, maybe doing steps, stepping up and down, and then walking. You can create intervals in lots of different ways. This is how we did one with one bladder pain patient. Screw walking now, can you take yourself out to a jog? So this is an anti-gravity treadmill, have you seen this before? That's what I was sizing my patient for. She's got a pair of shorts on, then zip into it. It blows up like a balloon and it takes, she's at 80% of her body weight is taken away. She's at 20% of her body weight. It's like being on the moon. 12 seconds in that jog. It's basically the same as hydrotherapy but without water. So that's how we started, and then over time we built up to comfortable pedalling. And now 20 seconds first, go. 20 seconds is quite a long time to do a burst. But by this point she could tolerate sitting on a bike seat. And she 9 seconds left. She's a PT, she really enjoyed training. And now relax. Normal pedaling. Okay. And then 10-second burst, go. So then I adjusted it just because she started to get a bit sore. Keep going. I didn't know she wasn't coping with it, and we changed the posture. So she's out of the saddle. It's a bit harder, but it's nicer for a perineum. 1, and back to normal pedaling. And then we progress that to this. Ready, steady, go. High pressure, high load, high force. 5 reps is one interval. Rest for a minute. Another 5 reps, 5 to 6 times through. And she managed it well. She's absolutely fine. And she would just said, "Don't make me do that again." Stretches and stuff that we include, they're also a really nice way of building body schema. You will know these, happy baby, variations on them, single leg, 2 leg, breathing mechanisms. But really it's about getting the patient doing something that they enjoy, whatever that is. So I used to say, and don't think I'd say to you guys, but when I'm teaching a lot of younger physios, we don't get any training in strength and conditioning. The only understanding that I have of higher level of that kind of, for any kind of exercise, is that I did about 10 years of having a personal trainer. And he would take me around the gym and make me do all sorts of different exercises and lift heavy weights, and I loved it. And then doing different classes, going to a spin class, don't really like them, but I understand them now. Going to Zumba classes, again, they're hilarious, don't understand them. I understand them but don't like them. Go and do as much as you can to understand what the stresses on the body might be like, and then when your patients want to get back to something, you can send them. Predictions are stories as well that we tell about ourselves, but they're not always true. So what do we think of this lady who's 8.5 months pregnant lifting? Are we happy with that? Are we not happy with that?
It's okay for her.
Yeah, it's okay for her.
Yeah, absolutely. If she's been lifting all the way through pregnancy, great. Would we be happy with that if she was a bladder pain patient? Why?
Maybe well. Yeah.
She's happy.
Still, yes.
Yeah, so again, the narrative, remember, that I was taught and that I used to work to was do some yoga, do some Pilates, don't go and do lifting heavy things, that will tighten everything, and because it's tight it will be painful. But we know that those two things now are not, they're related, they commonly occur at the same time, but they're not due to each other. And actually Carrie Bow's work, when was it? It was like 4 or 5 years ago now, when she looked at the pressures in different common positions. And one of the highest pressurized positions for a woman to be in was down dog. And that's because we classically as women, we don't actually have really great thoracic control. So we push through our arms, and there's a huge amount of diaphragm and gripping abdominally that pushes through our back passage. So an early stage post-operative or prolapse patient probably shouldn't be doing yoga. Yeah, because that's very high load. Whereas things like weight training weren't so high load if you've got the ability to carry them off. Laurie, my mate, is doing her PhD at the moment looking at prolapse and training because she does CrossFit, and she's annoyed that women are coming out of hospital with booklets that say, don't pick up anything heavier than your handbag, or don't pick up a pan full of water and potatoes, is what we used to be told in the UK. You can pick up a kettle with 1 cup of water in it. My mother-in-law still works with this, and I worked it out because we had a little secret conversation a while ago, but I'm pretty sure she's got a prolapse. And she's hilarious. She'll give my father-in-law her handbag and then pick up my 3-year-old toddler that is 15 kilograms. So she's absolutely fine. But Laurie has found already in her phase 1 trial that physically active women who lift heavy weights for exercise do not have an increased prevalence of POP. And actually what she found, if you look at her data, and she talks about this, I don't know if she actually has done it on the she runs the Pelvic Health podcast. I don't know if she's talked about her research yet, but in her data, the women that were lifting the heaviest weights, more than their body weight in deadlifts and squats and things like that, were at the lowest risk because they were engaging things. So I would always train the woman to the task, and I think of this, the woman with the 8-year-old child with cerebral palsy that had a grade 3 cystocele, large genital hiatus, tiny perineum, and it was all just like coming to the surface and then out. She was only about 36, 35. I felt miserable for her, and they wouldn't operate. They would have operated on it because she had a child with cerebral palsy that she was going to continue to lift. And no one had ever done physio with her, and she couldn't keep a pessary in because it was falling out. So I was like, right, we are going to train you to the nth degree, to the Olympic level that you need to be able to lift, because your 8-year-old is going to be a 10-year-old and a 15-year-old that you're lifting. And you need to have a vagina that can hold everything in and lift that. So we did, we sent her off to the gym, and over about a year, she trained, started very low, but she trained with a trainer, to the point where we then could get a pessary in, and then when a pessary was there supporting and there was enough control to hold it, she trained until she's now really, really fit and strong, no issues, manages with a pessary. And yeah, it annoys me. We need to train women to be stronger. Violate their expectations. Yeah, get out your room, go to the gym, take them to a lovely picture, sit them on a box, do things that aren't necessarily one finger in a room on a bed. Because patients, when they have centralised trauma and they have lots going on, they often need other stuff first. And we talked a lot this morning about touching them nicely with pants on and making them feel loved and cared for and doing something. You feel like you've done something, they feel like you've done something. Well, that can also be, let's just see what you can do in the gym. Let's do some nice stretches for your bladder. Make it up. Bladder stretches don't exist. Let's do some other stuff, but find ways to engage their system. Okay, we're not going to do that because we're going to have lunch, but first of all, presents.